G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, lovely people of this wide world of 40k, and welcome to episode 205 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name's always is Adam, and I'm joined by two stats gurus. I promised gurus, and these gentlemen have provided. I don't know if they are humble and they will own such a title, but here they are. We are joined by Nathan, commonly known as the Stats Dad from Statcheck. Hello, brother.
Hello, Adam. I love this moniker without needing to have earned it in any way whatsoever.
You've absolutely earned it. Shut up. That's what I do. I bring guests on and tell them to shut up immediately. And we're also joined by an erstwhile fellow you may not have heard of as of yet, but you should definitely pay attention to what he produces. This lovely gentleman's name just goes by Frank, and he is the spearhead behind the Dirt Sheets, 40k Dirt Sheets. Hello, brother. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I will also earnestly accept Guru as a much better title than the title bestowed on me by Innis in the Statcheck Discord, which is knows for the best C tier list in any given book.
I thought he was going to call you something like Dirty Frank because you do the dirt sheets. But anyway, let's hope that one doesn't stick, and I just didn't put that out to thousands of people.
You did, and it's in there for.
I'm gonna make a custom role for Frank right now. That's just Dirty Frank. Congratulations,
Dirty Frank with the dirt sheets. But anyway, gents, we are here to unpack the WTC, and this is commonly assumed to be the most competitive event in the world. The best players in the world playing for their nations, 40 of them at this year's contest. That'll be held in Mechelen, Belgium. There's going to be coverage far and freaking wide. If you literally. You can have as much content of the WTC as you want. And in addition to having it in your home language, should you please, I believe there are many different streams that are going to be occurring. Definitely the French stream. They've been kicking absolute ass at the WTC for the last couple of years. I'll be streaming with War Games Live. Me and Joe putting the band back together, doing another WTC. We're going to be doing the Warmaster singles as well. But Nathan's also going to be in tow with the wonderful gentleman, Joker and Tweak from Contact Lost. Nathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Sure. So this year we're going to be doing the studio stream again. Similar to last year, it's going to be kind of an NFL red zone style thing where between rounds, for people who are NFL familiar, but between rounds, we will bring over coaches and captains from teams that are playing typically on the stream table, typically at Joe's stream table at War Games Live, and do a quick interview, talk to them about the ins and outs, and then we will also go out into the field, figure out what's going on, and keep everybody apprised on what's going on non-stream tables periodically throughout the rounds. So me, Danny, and Joker will be handling that. Tweak, alas, will not be with us, but Danny Porter has taken his place. And everybody will be really excited because we have a tech person this year for our Contact Lost stuff, so the audio will be better. But that's our plan. We're going to have some awesome, wonderful takes and a bunch of awesome, wonderful people from all around the world on to talk about their favorite thing, which is 40k.
Fantastic. So whilst any other stream may be down, you should all be going over to Contact Lost and checking out the overview of the event, getting all the ins and outs, who's winning, what's doing well, where the surprises are happening, any big wins, big losses, etc., etc. And yeah, I'm really excited about what you guys do. But it's on to Dirty Frank and the Dirt Sheets, mate. Tell us about what you do. And please, tell people how awesome and excited people should be about your content.
Yeah, so similar-ish to what the Statcheck guys do, I review all of the lists from the weekend that either win an event or go X and 1 at an event, barring some super major cases like Tacoma. I was a little bit more flexible than just the X and 1. I did something like, X and 1 within the first 6 rounds, since that's usually what we see at a GT. But I'll go through each list. One of the other Discord users in the Statcheck Discord made a script that parses a lot of the list data now, so it's a lot less manual. But I go through and I basically tally up every instance of every unit, every data sheet, the war gear enhancements, how often those units appear in what size configuration, and then compile it all together, on a Tableau dashboard and basically give a breakdown for each detachment, for each faction. What are people taking to events and winning? So trying to answer the question of what's quote unquote good for certain armies by showing, well, these are what people are taking and winning at 20, 30 events over the last however many weeks. So start here, and then if you want to get fancy and flex or snowflake or what have you, then you can do that. But kind of providing a good core, potentially identifying things that might be too good if they're in 100% of lists, like we saw that with, I think, the Yinkarn back at launch.
Yeah.
Launch Eldar was like 5 things where like 95+% appearances. So it's just the same thing all the time.
And this is really the next level from the faction. So you have the faction data, of course, where you can go over and watch different a multitude of different shows, including one that I'm on called The War and Meta Chasers, which is on at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays. You go check that out. And we go through the faction stats, but then you guys go deeper and you go into the detachment stats, and then past that, because it's all well and good to say, Space Marines Iron Storm is broken, busted, but then people say why, and people say, well, what's working? And then you guys unpack that next level of, well, the Gladiator Reaper is taken in 95% of cases, so obviously this is a linchpin part of what is good about this detachment. And then when people start asking us further questions, they can really go to the dirt sheets and what you do and figure out what is working. I love looking at it for the tech pieces, because I think it's quickly identifiable what is very good about certain detachments. But then what's the glue? What's the next level down that sticks it all together and makes it all work? And that's what I always love about it. Like, are they taking combi weapon lieutenants or Calidus assassins? Which is the lone up of choice for respective XYZ, yada, yada, yada. And I love being able that we have resources out there. People can have those questions answered. But anyway, this is, of course, a 2-part podcast. And on part 1, we're going to be unpacking the faction data and the detachment data, in addition to a little bit of the heat map that Frank has been loving enough to present for us, as in like what units are being taken in what armies. And we're going to give you a quick rundown on that. And then over on part 2, we've got some poignant questions and some factions that patrons of ours have want completely unpacked. I think we've got Thousand Sons, Tau, Imperial Knights, Eldar, a couple of others that we're actually just going to read off what every unit that they have taken at the WTC for respective factions. And it's just such a joy we get to do this. So come over and join us over there at Art of War Down Under over on Patreon. But let's jump in, gentlemen. Someone's typing.
Oh, it's me, sorry.
You got a loud keyboard there, mate.
I do have a loud mechanical keyboard.
Dirty Frank and his loud keyboard.
Oh, this is nothing but W's. Nothing.
So good. So good. Leave it in, Seamus. Leave it in. All right. So we have 40 nations in attendance at the WTC. And of course, this is an 8-pack player team event. And so, a faction can only be taken 40 times at the WTC. Now, there's a big discrepancy, and not as much a discrepancy as we've seen in many years past, where we've had multiple factions taken by every single team. I think Eldar was a case in point last year. I don't think there was a single faction, single team that went without Eldar, and then I think there was a couple of others as well, like Custodes or Genestealer cults that were taken by just about everybody as well. We've got a much better distribution of factions than we have in previous years, but we still have a full bell curve of 0 to 2 all the way up to 40. So starting at the bottom, I'm just going to quickly read these out, and I'll stop about a quarter of the way through here and get any hot takes from you gentlemen. But 0 Genestealer cults have been taken to the WTC. Not a one out of the 40 nations in attendance, and assuming to be 8 players of their best caliber, not one of them thought Genestealer cult was worth taking to the World Team Championships. Does this surprise anybody?
No. But the book's bad.
It's hollow.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about that book is that it's going to take, I think, more testing in Pariah than what was available from when Pariah dropped to the start of WTC, essentially, to get an expert to craft something out of it. But also that the thing that's going to be crafted out of it is going to be not dependable enough to work in WTC.
Yep, that is a very good take. In addition, I call that book hollow. So there's 3 levels of, I guess, craftsmanship or list design concepts, whatever, that go into the designing of a codex. And you have the detachment level, then you have the faction special rule, it's the recursion for Gene Stealer cults, which is, I believe, one of the things that holds them back, because that's a rule that they just are so afraid to make broken, considering what happened with Index Gene Stealer cults. And then down from that, you have the detachments. And I would actually say the Gene Stealer detachments are actually relatively good. They're not awful. They're not fantastic. They're pretty mid and perfectly acceptable. But then their units is where the thing just falls on its face. So if you have two of those three in a really good place, I'm of the opinion you can have a pretty good book. When you have two of them in not a good place, I think you automatically have a bad book. And that's pretty much when Gene Stealer cults are. But let us go down the rest of the spiel. We have 2 Imperial Knights, 4 Chaos Demons, 6 Adeptus Custodes, and 6 Adeptus Mechanicus, and then 8 Chaos Knights. Frank, what do you make of that, the bottom end of our bell curve?
I don't think any of that is too surprising for me. The 2 Imperial Knights lists are being taken by teams that looking at the breakdown, I don't think have any other Imperium lists, and then I think they're taking the 2 most represented Marine lists, so it's like they're not really worried about shutting off Canis Rex for any other allies. So
they're being taken by, I think, Switzerland and Sweden.
Yep, and Sweden's running Gladius Dark Angels, which is the surprising hotness, and then Switzerland's running Blood Angels Sons, which is the current reigning champ.
Yeah, fair. It's actually more Custodes than I assumed. I wouldn't have been surprised if there was like less than 5 Custodes, possibly even like 1 or 2. Nathan, is there anything that I mean, and one case in point is the fact that Poland, the reigning defending champions of the world at 40k, are taking Custodes. Is there anything hidden in plain sight that we didn't notice when we looked at Custodes that is possibly some super hotness or, skew tech?
The interesting thing to me is that if you were looking at this from a singles perspective, right, Poland has taken 2 armies that are not seen as frequently in the singles environment, which are Adeptus Mechanicus and Adeptus Custodes. I think in teams, both of these factions do significantly better. I don't know if it's for Mechanicus, it's definitely skewed because I think that Skitari Hunter cohort that they're running is a bunch of infantry. I haven't looked at their specific AdMech list as of yet, but I think it is just like a ton of infantry models.
Yeah,
and that army has gotten such an upgrade in its ability to actually do damage, as in it never did damage before to now it does actual damage to things. I think I'm more surprised that more people didn't take it and that there were only 6 people who ended up taking Adeptus Mechanicus, and I wonder if that's just like some lag because that army is still hideously expensive and challenging to hobby. Even if you are a WTC team, you may not have anybody who has actually collected Adeptus Mechanicus because of how terrible they've been across the entire edition.
Well, that was exactly what that was the next point I was going to make. We have Adeptus Mechanicus and Adeptus Custodes both taken with 6 in representation. And I think they are a tale of 2 different stories, where I feel like if people had more time and the miniatures and the faction specialists, because there are so few AdMech specialists in this world, that number I would have, if WTC was 2 months later in the year, I would not have been surprised to see the AdMech numbers double, to go from 6 to like 12 or into the teens. But just because I actually rate them extremely highly, especially because they bring so many unique mechanics and different. So they have essentially 8-bound, the threat range of 8-bound in their Rust Stalkers, but the backline shooting firepower of Guard. They have like tank commanders and Lehman Russ equivalents. And I think if people had more time, would not have been surprised if the AdMech numbers went up. Chaos Knights is an interesting one. So I thought there would be tons of Chaos Knights WTC. I literally have been playing into and against Chaos Knights on WTC tables, and they're fantastic. So why are they not taken en masse here, do we think? Do we think they're just counted by the rest of the meta? Or do we think that it is just, I don't know, a huge proportion of the world is wrong about Chaos Knights and they're actually not that good in 8-packs?
I personally don't want to tell Jeremy that they're wrong, but it could be... There's something interesting when you talk to WTC teams, especially this post-Brian Nexus world, right? Where the first 4 factions, I think, are relatively easier decisions, especially even in Pariah. And when you look at the faction counts in the other end of the bell curve, which is around the low end, when you get up to the high end, you can kind of start to see that there are about 5 that are pretty straightforward choices. And then the next 3 choices, I think, the next two are going to be based on the country that you're from and what you think is kind of neat. And then that last one is going to be your like wild card kind of decision, and that's where we pull some of these ones out. I don't think that there's some kind of hidden thing about Chaos Knights. I don't think they're bad. I guess I'm just always worried about Knights in this meta, and perhaps your experience is just a little bit different than mine, Adam. They don't ally in quite as well to other things as they did before.
Yeah. Allying the Nurglings ain't what it used to be, seeing as they can't actually generate you many of the cards off the top of the deck. And of course, Chaos Knights pretty much always want to be playing with a tactical deck. Is it more the fact that they're one of the very few factions that people can just take fixed verse, whereas virtually nothing else in the game being played at the top end of this bell curve gives up any significant fixed options? I mean, you'd have to be a brave person in this world to go and Bring It Down versus some of the Bringers of Flame Sororitas builds out there. You have to be so brave and so ready to win big or lose big. But moving on,
when you give up max on a fixed secondary, it's kind of rough. Just like direct game plan decision. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Next up from Chaos Knights, we have Orcs with 10 and also Death Guard with 10. Then we have 11 for World Eaters, 11 for Drakari, and 11 for Astra Militarum. And then we have Votann at 14. So here we find a couple of our gun lines and also a couple more flexible and or grindy lists. There's actually no real differentiation here because we've got World Eaters that are typically aggressive, Drakari that's typically tempo, Death Guard that's pretty grindy, and then we have two of our gun lines in Astra Militarum and Leagues of Votann. We have to go all the way up to, I think, the fifth most taken faction to go to Tau Empire, where we see what I assume people see as the best shooting army in the game right now, and I do tend to agree with that. But Jen, what do we make of the middle of this pack? So that being Orcs, which are actually quite low in the numbers. I mean, if WTC happened 3 months ago, I would have been very surprised to not see 100% of teams taking Orcs. Yeah. But where are they at now, and why is this such a nosedive? But we do have some very interesting takes here. Most of the detachments are Warhordes, and we'll go back to the detachments chat after we've done this. But we do have some green tides here. We have one mad lad taking the big hunt. Which nation is that from? I think that is Singapore and Thailand.
That is Slovakia.
Slovakia, never mind. My apologies. It's hard to.
Oh no, I just had it up right now. So
fantastic. What do you make of the middle of the pack?
I'm surprised. Oh, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's nothing terribly surprising. I mean, the Orcs, like having it be Horde and then Green Tide, not terribly surprising. Probably the two most aggressive builds now that Bully is effectively dead, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, some armies just cannot handle 100 to 120 Orc boys. One of them teleporting around, especially with the secret mission tech. You teleport a guy, you make your weird boy the warlord, and you go for the put your warlord on the home objective, and then just go, all right, 1 CP plus 5 to my 9-inch charge. Good luck trying to out OC 20 Orc boys after that on the back.
Yeah. Well, they changed that strat, didn't they? Because is it only +2 or +3 it's capped at? But anyway, it's still perfectly fine. And it's one of the best secret mission techs in the game. And I believe that is that's the United States had that green tide. So they must know something. There's one other green tide that's been taken as well. Just going to quickly see which nation that was. Israel wielded green tide also. What's surprising to me, the Drakari numbers are quite impressive. I wouldn't have been surprised to Drakari down the back end of things, but I think their grindy nature and the fact that they can score every card. There ain't a single freaking card you can draw off the top of the deck that is, legal to be scored, like Cull the Horde if they don't have a Horde and stuff. That Drakari cannot score. And I believe that they are actually tweening with Eldari for a similar role, as in, you can't really 20 them. You can't really blow them out and put them in the ground. And I think that brings a lot of confidence to teams. World Eaters and Death Guard is about the numbers I expect, though, like 11 and 10. That's pretty much what I expect. If you have a good player, and if you have a specialist with those, they can still put up big numbers. And once again, Death Guard is a very hard list to blow out on table pick. Like, if you just don't end up on the light table versus freaking Tau, you're going to get points. You're not going to get 20'd. But what do you make of the Astra Militarum and the Votann boys? Because they're both, ostensibly shooting armies. And looking at the distribution here, so there are X's to denote which nations have taken which of these. And there's only what I believe is one nation that has taken both of these, which denotes that nations have sat down and they've gone, which shooting army do we want? And most of them have picked one or the other of these, which is why I really wanted to unpack this.
Yes, that is England. So I believe last week you were mentioning England might just be doing 2 upscale, And Votan,
Yeah.
you can definitely skew into vehicles and 2-ups. Guard, you can skew into Bulgren and
Russ's
chassis
yeah.
Dorns. So
Yep.
I think that theory does hold some weight. I mean, I think Votan are in a position, they're almost kind of, and you'll give me a second, they're almost kind of like Blood Angels in the fact that they haven't been getting nerfs. They've just been
Coasting.
they haven't been getting buffs, but they haven't been getting nerfs. They've been just kind of chilling, maybe swapping on how many Sagittars you take. They've just been like grinding along. So I think the builds for Votan are now very tested going into Pariah, and I think that both of them just will end up having good matchups that you can somewhat protect them with, and if you give them the right lists, then they will just tear you apart, especially with the Jaegers now giving Votan a forward deploying option.
Yeah, the insulation as well to get to use a bunch of their other special rules, a bunch of other scats and whatnot. Nathan, anything to add?
When you look at the England list, it is just like if you look at the composition of their thing across the whole, I tend to agree with the idea that it might just be like hull skew for the entire team, which is such a funny thing to think about. Is a whole team being like, if we just put down a bunch of vehicles, then nobody will be able to crack any of this, and then it'll be okay because they won't have enough armies that are just suited for it.
Yeah.
But I guess not talking specifically about Votan or Astromel Charm, I'm actually more surprised at how many orcs there are, but also the difference in orcs to Death Guard to World Eaters is like there's one of each of those in the top 10, essentially, except for World Eaters who has 2. It's kind of interesting to look at how those numbers get hit once you go down into like the Seed 2, Seed 3 team more than anything else. So that density is kind of interesting to me. I don't know what to make of it yet, but I do know that USA probably in part took orcs because they have probably seen something, but also one of the players that has made the main team is essentially an orc faction specialist, which is Lucas.
Yeah. Well, that goes for their World Eaters player as well. So they've got specialist in World Eaters and specialist in orcs. And it's been good to see the confidence picks out of some of these Seed 1 teams being like, well, we're going to back the fact that we think we've got, possibly one of the best orc players in the world and just let them do their thing. And I think that's really, really important at this top level. Yep. All right. Next up from there, we have Chaos Space Marines with 17 teams taking them, Tyranids with 18, Eldari with 18, and then Tau Empire with 19. And then from here, we're going to go to the absolute top of the pile. But that middle pack is very interesting. I mean, Eldari, once again, can't be blown out, have just got, they are the Horde MSU, as in like MSU via, what do we call it, action locking. They just got too many freaking units for you to handle to stop them scoring and putting up points. And Tyranids are in much the same place, but Tyranids bring, I think, a myriad of different jank, and they're doing it much more from a melee point of view outside of, say, Exocrines. And the ridiculous number of Tyrannofexes with rupture cannon stuff that I had to do the stats on an hour ago. And I'm just still scratching my head. I don't get it. That's the one for me. I assume I am wrong because there are so many phenomenal players taking Tyrannofexes with rupture cannons. But man, oh man, I look at that and I'm like, really? That's what you wanted to do with that many points? Okay. Yep.
I am so confused.
Yeah.
Looking at this faction distribution and seeing Crusher Stampede all over it. And like that.
You're seeing Crusher Stampede on it.
Yeah, on it. It's all over it. Like it's not just one team that took it. It is 3-4 teams that took it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 4 more teams than I anticipated. Yeah. And I'm like, and one of the teams that took it is a Seed 1 team. That's the United. Is that the United States?
It is the United States.
Yep, it is the United States who took Crusher Stampede, and that, like, I don't know, that breaks my brain. Somebody needs to sit me down and explain that one to me because I don't understand it even remotely.
So the biggest, I think, most interesting thing about Tyranids is that pretty much they are the most varied detachment selection. Everything else is not homogenous, but there's no 3-way split in anything else, let alone a 4-way split, which there almost is for Tyranids, which we have Vanguard, Invasion Fleet, Crusher Stampede, and Synaptic Nexus all taken in pretty decent numbers. I think Vanguard is slightly more than the rest, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say, unless they are used exclusively as a defender, I think Vanguard has a real big problem putting up differentials on people. Like if Vanguard finds themselves in green matchups, if you can't put that person in jail and keep them there, you actually don't get big wins. And so I've been a bit of a Vanguard naysayer for some time. Very good singles list, totally fine singles list, as long as you have the brain capacity to play at the highest level for 6 games. But Tyranids is very interesting for the point that there doesn't seem to be a solved detachment for their book. It's wide open.
No, I can definitely see that. And Tyranids have definitely kind of gotten a revival in Pariah, which has been interesting to see. Like, they weren't bad pre-Pariah, but they've definitely seen their list diversity increase quite substantially. And yeah, there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on Vanguard as compared to the other detachments, which is basically double everybody else.
Yeah.
Which is impressive. I'm not surprised to see it, though. It is, I think, a little bit easier to bring something in that you know is good in singles and then just have somebody kind of try to execute on it if you have to protect it. I think you'd have to look at the whole team to kind of decide if they've just kind of locked in on protecting that one and seeing what, or like protecting a few factions to do what they need to do best, and then kind of just going with it. I mean, in Seed 1, we have Vanguard, 2 invasion fleets, or 2 Vanguards, 2 invasion fleets, and a Crusher. So, like, everything except Synaptic Nexus in the Seed 1 teams. Yeah. It's kind of interesting to think about.
So we should probably unpack that. So the WTC has a pod stage for the first 2 days, I believe. I believe it's the first 3 games. They have a pod stage. It is the first 3 games where you'll be in pods of 4. So it's going to be 10 pods of 4 teams. And then each pod is going to have a distribution of Seed 1 teams, Seed 2 teams, Seed 3 teams, and Seed 4 teams. Seed 4 teams is usually teams that are brand new. In this case, we have Andorra, China, Israel, Malta, Mexico, Singapore/Thailand, Slovakia, and South Korea all joining the WTC for the very first time. So they're going to start off in Seed 4. And then going up all the way through to Seed 1, your last couple of performances at the WTC, I think it's the last 3 performances at WTC, are averaged out to see where you usually finish, where your nation usually finishes, and then you're chucked into a seed based on your previous seedings. So the top 1 seeds being Australia, Austria, England, France, Germany, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Sweden, and the United States are all assumed to be somewhere around the top 10 teams based on their previous performance. And so they'll be distributed evenly throughout the pods. Same for 2s and 3s and 4s, etc. And so you'll have, Seed 1s playing Seed 4s and 3s and 2s and blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to Swiss thereafter for the event. Now, when Nathan refers to, what is taken by the Seed 1s, that's assumed to be the best of what are the best players in the world, or the best performing teams comprised of the best players in the world. Doesn't necessarily mean that Australia's players are better than everybody else's, even though, we are. But it's assumed...
Can you tell me some more about this, Adam? Tell me some more.
No, it's my show. It's a full stop at the end of that sentence. But yeah, that's what Nathan was referring to, just to give you guys a quick update on that. But the other one where the detachment is quite stratified is the Tau Empire. Retaliation Cadre, Moncar, and Kauyon all taken in relatively decent numbers. I think Moncar and Kauyon are definitely taken quite a bit more than Retaliation Cadre, of which there are 4 out of the 19, and the rest of the other 2. Not a single crew detachment. What is going on there? I mean, the powerhouse of the chicken carnivores just left on the shelf. I'm appalled.
Absolute shame.
Is Grundy not playing in WTC this year? Come on.
He's coaching. He's coaching, I beve. He's playing in the singles, which is going to be interesting.
I was like, I saw him last year at the event, and I was like, where are all the chickens? Because he was been the person historically running it in singles now.
Well, he was being a mad lad last year, and he was coaching for Team South Africa when they were coming and attending for the very first time. So he was helping them get off the ground. So awesome work by him. All right, up until the top and the most taken factions, we have Necrons, 26 teams, Grey Knights, 28, Adeptus Sororitas, 29. Thousand Suns 32 and Space Marines 40 out of 40. So every single nation, every single team took Space Marines. And then only 8 didn't take Thousand Suns, 11 didn't take Sisters, 12 didn't take Grey Knights, and then 14 didn't take Necrons. But actually less Sisters than I would have thought. I would have thought Sisters would have been first or second, like 38, 36 Sisters players. What do we reckon there? Do you reckon there's people just like not having enough time to get their head around the book, or they don't have the player, or whatnot?
I am actually, like, if you look, okay, I'm going to be biased towards Seed 1 again, and I'm sure people are going to be sick of this at some point to me, but there's only one Seed 1 team that doesn't have Sisters, and that's France. And like, when you start, the place where you start to see gaps in like the number of teams that are taking it is in seed 3 and seed 4.
Correct.
So it's interesting. I think Bringers of Flame is incredibly straightforward as army play goes. But I haven't seen an emulator available on the Games Workshop store for like 6 months.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
that could be part of it. Is model availability is like a legit thing when you're dealing with countries all over the world, right? And some people don't necessarily have the same kind of model sharing networks that you have in other places. So it can get real challenging, I think, to get some of these together. Like if you can't bring 3 like emulators, are you going to bring Sisters and Bringers of Flame? I'm more amused here that there's a single Penitent Host and a single Hall of Martyrs than anything else, though. That
in seed 1, mate. Yeah.
Germany is doing something weird. Penitent Host. When I saw that army detachment build go up by like 550 points.
Yep.
When from codex points that were previewed to the actual points in the Militarum Field Manual, I was like, I don't think you're ever going to see this ever again, even though it's still probably fine. I'm very surprised, and I'll have to.
Well, I was surprised until I looked at the rest of their faction distribution, and then I wasn't, because they're not taking Blood Angels, they're not taking World Eaters, they're not taking any other super. They're not even. I don't believe they're even taking CSM. They only have that one ultra aggressive list to protect, and so that's why I think it's okay. Well, that's why in my head it makes sense. Like if we only have the one super straight line go and kill him in that deployment zone immediately list, I think it can squeak by. And whether that is better than just having Blood Angels, World Eaters, one of these other high pressure aggressive lists, is for them to review and decide. But when I looked at the distribution, I was like, okay, I get this. They're going to protect this guy, and this guy's going to go and try and get 20s. Frank, pulling you back in here, give us a hot take on the Necrons, because this isn't what we would have expected. Pre-slate, this would have been pretty much 100% Canoptic Core, but that is not the case. What is it right now?
It's mostly Hypercrypt. I think that's because the Hypercrypt, and it's kind of the same thing with Grey Knights. Like, hey, the ability to take up 3-4 units, put them back wherever you want at the end of every turn in Pariah is pretty good. There's a lot more position or get bonus points if you have stuff, if you're doing stuff in your opponent's deployment zone or whatever. So anytime you could just pick stuff up and drop it and then make your opponent go, well, I have a monolith here, but also this one idiot Locust Destroyer who scored my opponent like 8 points on secondaries. Like, which do I go kill? Do I really have to go back? Yeah. Do I really go backwards to kill the 40-point idiot who's scoring these secondaries? And then your opponent goes, I got like a bunch more idiots that I can just pick up and put back down, and you can't really screen because I can 3-inch deep strike. So I think that, and then I think people have just figured out how to kill the Wraith math wall at this point. Like, I think most people know just like what you need to do to kill that, because we had Wardens and Bully Boys. So,
well, exactly right. Hypercrypt has been a stable target for, the last 6 months, if not more, actually, probably like 8 months. They've been a very stable and solved equation. And whereas in an 8-pack team, you can really negotiate and bully. I guess when we're looking at the Necrons, I'm looking at this spread right now. To the right of Necrons is everything that's taken less than Necrons. And in my opinion, apart from things like Chaos Space Marines and some Tyranid lists, Canoptic Court does quite well into everything to the right of Necrons in the bell curve distribution. Where they struggle is the left. So Wraiths, Grey Knights, they're kind of fine with Wraiths, especially Drago and the Terminator Brick. They don't care. They'll kill them over time, and they'll hold the objective the entire time they're doing it. Sisters mulligan the ever-living crap out of Wraiths and Catan. I'm going to just drive checks watch 19 Melter shots in Melter range with Miracle Dice support. I think your Nightbringer's dead, and they are correct. And then to the left of them, Thousand Suns have Jank for days and Mortal Wounds to negotiate a lot of that. And then especially Blood Angels really do not care about Wraiths. They'll just walk right up to them with Death Company and obliterate them in one turn. So I 100% agree with this, and that's for people at home. If you're playing in Necrons in singles, it's time to drop. Maybe you can take 6 Wraiths in Hypercrypt. That's up to you. But the Canoptic Court Wraith build is just too stable and known a quantity. So put it on the shelf for a couple of months, come back in a bit, see if it looks better. Grey Knights, no surprise, big numbers here, mostly Dread Knights. There are some wacky builds, especially by England, where they've taken majority of infantry. And this was what led me to make aspersions that they were playing hulls or 2+ save skews. And then we have pretty much just about everything's Bringer of Flames for Sisters, with the exception of 2 lists out of 29. So that's 27 Bringers of Flame. And then Thousand Suns, it's Europe, baby. Thousand Suns in Europe. What's the line of the show where you made one of the fatal mistakes, never get into a land war in Asia and
from Princess Bride, where it's
Princess Bride,
never get
that's
into
right.
a land war with Asia and never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Yep, and Thousand Suns absolutely wreck face in Europe. That's pretty much added to that one. But then when we get to the Space Marines, the only faction taken by every single nation, which is no freaking surprise with the depth that there is available to Space Marine players, as in like you can pretty much play with whichever build you want, and there is going to be a good build there. There are a couple of surprises here still. There's a couple of Righteous Crusaders, a couple of Storm Lancers, and I believe one Iron Storm taken by a Seed 1 team in addition, which is very surprising. But the vast majority are Sons of Sanguinius, and then down from Sons of Sanguinius is the Dark Angels Gladius. Why, boys? And of course, the Dark Angels Gladius is taking off, but why would you take that over Blood Angels is the question I'll pose to you.
I think in some of these situations, you're kind of at a team count point for Space Marines a little bit, because that Gladius task force is extremely durable. Deathwing Knights are good. Again, at WTC, Deathwing Knights all the way back full circle to back in good again. And when you look at USA, they have a World Leaders player. They don't need another hyper aggressive melee army necessarily, but they may need something that can just literally sit on points and just be unshifted, and it can go into something. I think Deathwing Knights can actually go pretty successfully into a Blood Angels army. So
100%.
People are taking a lot of Blood Angels and Death Company. It's great when you put a stack of -1 damage, 2 up, 4 up, invulnerable, mortal wound, fail, pain, AOC on something, and what is a number of hammer armies going to do to you at that point? You're going to hard counter a Blood Angels player if they don't protect them properly into your Dark Angels list.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I played a Dark Angels Gladius into Blood Angels recently, and his Lamades unit came out, lined up a charge on 5 Deathwing Knights. I rapid ingressed 5 Deathwing Knights behind my Deathwing Knights. He charged the front squad. I heroicked with the second squad. He split attacks, didn't kill both, and I picked him up. That's that, baby. And that's the stuff that list can do in that.
Turns out
matchup.
giving AP to your melee units, good.
Lol. Yeah.
I will say the one surprise, and I think that people will probably note if they're coming from a singles environment into this environment, is more that there's just not more Space Wolves in this.
Yes.
We've got 1, 2. There are a couple Seed 1s. Poland is taking it, and so is Australia. I almost said Austria and made that mistake for a third time.
It happens.
Yeah, it's true. And then everything else is Seed 3 and below, it looks like, which isn't a negative about Seed 3 teams. It's just positing at where the distributions of things are. It is really interesting to me. I think Stormlance is real good, but it has the possibility of failing epically if you just can't make 4-up invulnerable saves.
Well,
I've got
2
things. I think that the slate, this might be slightly hyperbolic. I think the slate killed Stormlance, but not in the way people thought. I think number one, not being able to double up strats really hurts that army against shooting armies. Because before you'd go -1 to hit wound and shooting on 12 Thunderwolf Cav. Good luck. Now you can't do that. It's only 1. And Champions of Rust finally getting to be a playable army means that you're this weird Black Templars at home, but not in a bad way kind of army. But that army, Thunderwolf Cav do hurt, but again, Thunderwolf Cav and a Deathwing Knights, that entire Stormlance melee profile is 6-1, 2 on the charge. So you pop terrible. A UC, and then you just go, look at this. Champions of Rust does have AP strats for your melee, and it does support different melee platforms. You can also pretend to be Blood Angels, have a infinitely fighting 6-inch consolidating dreadnought in your Fang. You also have Bjorn, the way the new Vect works, on a profile that's actually scary defensively and offensively on a dude on a dreadnought base.
Exactly right, and it's funny that that's starting to take off. People are liking to put their vects on things that people usually need strats to kill. Like I've actually come around to putting the Crew of Aquila on a tank commander and just running that with like 2 other tanks, because people, if you want to charge them, usually are wanting to pump strats into them to make sure that they kill Rust Hulls or Dawns, whatnot. But yeah, Bjorn's exactly the same case in point for that. Yeah, he's actually really kind of sick. There is a decent distribution of, like, so there's a little sprinkling of Righteous Crusaders in here, which I am super excited to see, because I think Righteous Crusaders is the best horde list in the game right now, and can do absolutely disgusting things if paired well. And I think that's the same case for the Stormlance. So the Stormlance, I think, is a confidence pick. It's are our pairings good enough that we get to let this list do what it does? Because for my mind, it's a big win, big lose list. It's a list that gets 20s or gets 20'd. You're either getting tabled because somebody put 12 Jaegers in front of you lined, and then they went first and they scouted up, and then they got angles and they killed half of 2 units or some crap. Because of course the Stormlance doesn't love playing on things like Super Ls, and I say no, they do the Super Ls, but there are some tables here that are really rough for the Stormlance. You can just block them up with 1 Sagittar and 1 unit of idiots, and then your whole fire base is free. But if you pair appropriately and pair really well with the Stormlance, they are absurd. They are terrifying. And the same can be said for the Righteous Crusaders. So the Righteous Crusaders are more like, I think, the better Death Guard for this meta and the better Canoptic Court. They are the grindy, never going to get blown out, most likely like 12 plus wins against just about everything in the meta.
I think there's something.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry. I was going to agree with you. I was going to say, I think people are discounting Black Templars
100%.
Significantly. Like, there's very few things that are going to pick up the sheer number of intercessor bodies that are present in that list. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to somehow magically just, especially on WTC tables where you can hide significant parts of it, like you're never going to be able to pick it up in 1 or even 2 or even 3 turns. Like, that army is going to maintain huge chunks of itself across the whole thing. And then when it hits you in combat, that Black Templar army does have the units that can just punch you into the sun. Given opportunity.
Let me check my notes here on what Helbrecht with the lieutenant kills, and it's
everything.
It's everything, and it's double everything if you flex and give the unit sustained. You just go I'm just gonna fish for 5s, and then you're just gonna die, buddy.
But anyway, that is enough on Space Marines. I do want to quickly talk about Chaos Space Marines, though. So Renegade Raid is taken pretty judiciously, and I think that's because people are trying to have Space Marines at home with their CSM. There is one list here. It's called the Pac-Man Zealots as well. And there are some horde lists for CSM starting to pop up. And I do wonder if there was another month before WTC where we would see a few more stray from the Renegade Raiders. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm taking the piss a little bit saying Space Marines at home for Renegade Raiders, or do you think they are much more powerful?
I think you are correct in another month. I know I've seen one player on the last 2 frontline events now do very well with Chaos Cult. Detachment. No one else is taking. Just like straight up. No one else is taking it. So.
And that's back to the bad old days of maxed accursed cultists, isn't it? And it's just
I don't even think he's taking maxed accursed cultist. I believe he's taking
if it's the gentleman If it's the gentleman who just won the Lone Star, he did have max. He had one unit that had the chaplain guy. What's he called?
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's two communes and an apostle.
And an apostle. Apostle goes with one, and then 2 communes go with the other. Then he had like 60 traitor guard, 50 cultists. This is just off the top of my head. And you're not gonna have a good time. You're not gonna have a good time. Mind you, there are some lists that will blow that up. There are some of the Tau lists here that will absolutely blow that up. And in addition, I wonder if that's an army that is built to be a bit of a stopper for sisters in the future, because outside of the Seraphim units, there's nothing there that really is going to clear out those horde units very well. But anyway, we've talked enough about the faction distribution. We're going to transition to talking a little bit about unit choices. And of course, we're going to focus on the more interesting factions right now. We're going to focus on the top factions. And then, when we go into part 2, if you want some more deep dives into some more obscure factions, please join us over there. But let us quickly have a look. Firstly, we'll start off with sisters, because that's the one I had open on the dirt sheet. So we're going to do that. 100% of sisters lists have 2 castigators or more. That's correct, yeah?
Yep, WTC, 100% castigators and 100% triumphs.
There you go. Well, take it away, mate. Give us a breakdown and let people feel the grandeur of the dirt sheets by give us a lowdown of the unit distributions for sisters.
Yeah, so give me 1 second because my Tableau restarted itself. So yeah, so looking specifically at bringers and this is singles specifically, immolators and castigators, 96.4%. So that's 27 of the 28 lists that have gone X1 or better. Bring an immolator and a castigator. 3-way tie at 89% with the Triumph, which I'm very surprised. Why are people not taking the thing that
Triumph?
I don't understand. Seraphim, again, not terribly surprised that that's that high. And then Dominions, which as someone who doesn't play that many sisters, I was confused at first. So I was like, what? Why are people taking 20 and 30 of these? I don't get it. And then Paragon, the Volgons at 75% again. And that's something we kind of see in the WTC spread as well, which interesting that there's one list that didn't take Vol, but did take
Paragons. Poland took 2x3 Paragons without Vol. And that's very surprising to me. They must know something. But yeah, I love how that correlates because 74% of WTC teams took the Paragons, where it's 75% in the wider singles meta. So that tells you pretty much. I love that correlates because that is undeniable. Then,
yeah, the WTC and the top of singles. Like, I don't think there's spicy bringers tech in singles.
Yeah,
or for singles that's going to come out of WTC. I wouldn't be surprised if people take more Paragons, maybe, but not taking Vol is genuinely very surprising to me in the army, in the gun fast detachment.
There are actually quite a few. It's not just Poland. I think the United States also doesn't have Vol.
Oh, really?
At the heat map correctly.
But how many don't have Vol but still took Paragons?
That's a better question. Yeah, there are not as many of those. I'm more surprised that there just is no Vol in some of these lists. But yeah, the ones that didn't take Vol, mostly except for Poland, appear to have not taken
Paragons.
Yeah.
Dominions are actually less than I thought. So the average is 21 or more Dominions, which is just because a lot of people took either 20 or 30, but 93% of lists taking Dominions. They seem to be like Dominions plus Immolators seem to be the new core of the Sisters book, right?
Yeah, Immolators, Castigators, and Dominions, and then at least like 15 Seraphim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seraphim. I think I said the wrong one, but
yeah, how many Seraphim?
The Flamers. 96% in WTC, averaging 16, and then over on singles, 89% build out. A lot of people taking at least a 10-man and then maybe a 5-man. So 53% of the lists take at least one 10-man unit of Seraphim, which not surprising.
So the stuff I usually look for when I'm checking out these stats is the singles of. So there's quite a few lists. 19% of lists have either taken a pendant engine or a mortifier, and most times when they've taken a single, they've taken two singles. And those are the kind of things I always look for because it's pretty easy to see what you should fill out 80% of your points with. But then what do you do with the last 200, 300 points? And yeah, pendant engines, mortifiers. A couple of people taking battle sisters. I don't understand why you would ever take battle sisters. They kind of suck. Arco-flagellants as well. A couple of units taken there. Then it gets weird. There's a couple of exorcists as well. 11% have taken exorcists. What's 11% of 28 lists? What, 2?
It's 4 of 28 taken. 14% of exorcists for singles. Are we talking on the WTC side?
We're doing both. Yeah, I love this little correlation we're doing.
I think Spain has kind of skewed the number a little bit because they took 3.
They have. I think only 2 other teams have taken 1. I think Romania took 1 and Finland took 1.
I don't hate it.
I don't have their war gear options off the top of my head, so there might be a case where they're just taking something to shoot large hordes of idiots.
At a WTC, what's it? 8 rounds, 7 rounds at the WTC. You can assume you're not going to be in a good matchup at least a couple of times. And having a single exorcist that can just sit on your home objective and then just try and get something done when you're like, I can't risk getting blown out in this matchup. I think it's a really good choice. I think that's kind of cute. I like it.
also
All right.
blowing up on a 5-up for vehicles.
Yeah, baby.
It's
All right, let's switch over to some Tyranids. Crusher frickin' Stampede. Let's tell people what the two Crusher Stampede, no, the three Crusher Stampede teams took. That's USA, Norway, and Czechia.
They all took Biovores, Exocrine, Gargoyles, Lictors, Tyrannofexes, and the Swarmlord. And
There
then
you go.
most of them, and by most I mean two, took Hormagaunts, a Neurotyrant, a Pyrovore, a Trigon, and Old One Eye. But Old One Eye with no Carnifexes.
Exactly right. There's not a single Carnifex at this event, as far as I can tell. There's not one.
No, not a single one.
Yeah, and yet there's how many overall Old One Eyes?
There's 2 in Crusher.
I've got it right here.
Is it really just the 2 in Crusher?
Yeah, I think it might be correct. I think I've missed a couple in my actual Tyranids breakdown that I did for you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
The flesh is weak.
Yeah, it looks like it's just the 2.
Yeah. The Tyrannofexes, once again, taken in quite big numbers. Let's have a little look. How many Tyrannofexes overall for the event? I think I have that number, which I'm quite confident in. 7 Tyrannofexes taken at this event, and mostly they're taken in 2s or more. There's a couple of singles that were taken with acid sprays, but then there's a couple that are taken in doubles and triples, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, it's wild.
I don't know what you bug players are doing, but I don't know if you're cooking or just burning the kitchen down. But
Yeah,
someone's doing something. Like one Tyrannofex, I'm looking at the profile for an acid spray. That's not a terrible profile.
it's good. Yeah,
D6 plus 6 at 622, 18-inch torrent. That is a good profile. That's Land Raider, Redeemer, and home territory, which
it
is
yeah.
good. And then like one with a rupture cannon. That's fine because you need something to shoot a transport.
I literally just thought of this, Frank. And if you can't do it on the fly, because I literally just thrown you in the deep end, I think it will be a great stat to note at the WTC how many unique units were taken. So, and that would in some way demonstrate the depth of a codex. So, a la how many different units were taken by Tyranids, because there are units taken by. I mean, when we were just looking at the sisters, the amount of different units taken by sisters was actually quite small. There was not much of a spread between how many units were takeable in their detachments, in their whatnot. So I'd be interested to know what factions have the most usable units at the highest level of the game. Is pretty much the question I was getting at.
I could probably do. I don't know if I can do that at this very second.
Well, chop, mate. What? That's fine. That's stress. You're good. That's a cool.
I do think that's an interesting stat, and I do think that's something I might marinate on and come back to, because I think that is something that would be interesting to see, especially with a lot of these, like especially like Marines, of course, with range for days and like
I would love
how much stuff is actually being taken.
I would love to see it as a percentage of total data sheets that they have. To see what kind of percentage we're looking at for data sheet utility.
Exactly.
Just as as we workshop a statistic.
Yeah, literally. We just threw it out on the fly. I do apologize. But yeah, that's the thing that I would think would be cool. Like, how many units in this codex are usable? And we could just slap a percentage on it. And how cool would it be to rank a book off usable units? That would be a sick thing.
I'll take that as an action item, and I'll get back to you.
I'm just helping the community grow here and give people hours and hours and hours of work.
I love this.
Right, let's go over the Blood Angels. Let's have a quick look here. So we have 100% of Blood Angels list have taken 15 or more. Well, you can't take more. 15 assaulted assassins with jump back. You can't take. Well, you can. You can take some.
You can take 30 if you're lunatic.
You're crazy. 95% have Death Company with jump pack. 90% Sang Priest with jump pack, and then 90% with Scouts and Van Vets. See, the thing is, I don't love Van Vets. I would rather 10 assault intercessors than 10 Van Vets. But here we are.
I am playing Blood Angels now. I played Templars for the past, I don't know how many months, and then switched after Atlantic City, and I'm going to be playing them up into like Nova and Champs Cup. Also, I'll be at Champs Cup.
What you're saying is you used to be cool.
Yeah.
Damn.
Which is funny. I was playing Templars, and then they're like, "Look, we made it easier for you to take Hell Breakdown and Lieutenant in Gladius." And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore.
I'm out. Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm out. I don't want to paint more impulsors. I could just fly.
Some really cute things to unpack with the Blood Angels is that 50% took a Bile Pred or more. So I love that. So we got Belgium has taken 2, China's taken 2, Czechia, Denmark have also taken 2, then a couple of singles. We got Ireland with 2 as well. So yeah, the Bal Pred making it to 50% of those lists. You would think I would have assumed there would be either 2 in 1 or 2 lists and then like none everywhere else. And I would have thought the Bal Preds would not be taken much on WTC tables in 8-pack pairings. But yeah, taking in pretty good numbers.
Yeah, I think, and so 38% of singles lists are taking ball pred, so it is a bit more than we're seeing in singles. What's interesting is the Calidus Assassin. I think it goes with the Calidus Assassin because the Calidus is showing up at 45% of WTC lists. Calidus Assassins in singles, 16%. So 5 of the 31 lists that have gone XM1 or better so far have been running the Calidus.
Interesting. And of course, we have to point out to people again that you can take literally one Calidus in your entire team. One assassin, the assassins can be used once in your lineup. So, and the fact that 45% of the time they've decided that Blood Angels is the best fit for their Calidus. That's interesting.
I mean, against mirror or other melees, it's
huge,
backbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely right. Regular assault intercessors showing up in pretty decent numbers as well, and then we've just got a distribution of characters sitting here in the middle of this bracket. One Death Company Dread has been taken 20% of the time. You mad lads, live your dreams. Do it.
Look, if you can end the game 5% of the time with that Death Company Dread because your opponent forgot how to account for it being able to activate multiple times, I'm more like really intrigued by Wales, who has taken 0 Death Company.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit in the Statcheck Discord, but we were like, what is going on over there? That list is so it's if do you want to run through the list like briefly? Just
sure, I can run through it real quick. It's like 15 Assault Intercessors, no Death Company, 2 Sanguinary Priests with jump packs, some 5 Scouts, 25 Van Vets, a single Calidus Assassin, sometimes this is hard to read, 10 Sanguinary Guard, a Captain with a jump pack, 10 Foot Death Company, sorry, I missed them, 1 Rhino, and then it's no enhancements and a single Sanguinor.
Yeah, that is spicy.
What a strange list. I guess you're banking on Van Vets just being durable enough and punching hard enough with the Sanguinary Priest at that point and kind of hoping that it works out. That's just all I can predict from that. I don't understand it.
Me either.
I'm gonna be honest.
Let's shift over to Blood Angels, then we'll probably just do one more. Maybe we'll do Necron's Hypercrypt, just to give people an insight there. We'll probably do Grey Knights very quickly on the way through. But Deathwing Knights taken 100% of the time. Why would you not? Only Switzerland and Slovakia, who took Dark Angels did not take 15. They took 10. Everyone else took 15. Apothecary Biologist making for 88% of lists. Only Germany didn't take them in their Dark Angels. Repulsor making all bar 1 also, with South Africa not taking a Repulsor. And then plenty of Scouts, of course. Inner Circle Companions taken quite judiciously also. We have a couple people, we have Germany taking 12. Everyone else is taking 6 or none. Jump Pack Intercessors and Eradicators making up most of these lists. Then we have Judica, Infiltrators, and regular Assault Intercessors being taken 50% of the time. Anything spicy or interesting here?
1 Lionel Johnson.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
In Slovakia. 1 Lionel Johnson. Otherwise, nothing here seems too surprising. People seem to have picked like tech pieces mostly, it looks like. Like you have a single Land Raider Redeemer with a Repulsor Executioner in South Africa. So they've kind of gone, I think, a little bit for just like 2-up save spam a little bit there.
Yeah.
And like Land Raider Redeemers are good. And Executioner is definitely a gun platform.
So this is the one that you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
The one that stuns me is that someone took Dark Angels and didn't take Azrael. Spain didn't take Azrael in their Dark Angels list.
That's baffling to me.
He's auto take. And Spain's like, nah, not convinced.
I don't get it.
So
Truly.
good. Well, no, I love it. That's what we love about the WTC because everyone thinks
I'm like looking at it. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, why is it done? Like, what are they doing? Why are they looking at like the best unit in the book and going like, nah, can't find a way to squeeze this dude in?
Man, like that is the WTC to a T because everyone thinks they know best. Everyone thinks their prep has got them the extra edge and whatnot. And man, Spain is a great team, is a great nation of 40k, and they think they've got the hot this and don't need it, and we'll see who's correct. Let's jump over to Grey Knights quickly, and then we'll do Necron's Hypercrypt, and then we'll get out of here. So, who didn't? England took Grey Knights and didn't take any Dread Knights. What the fuck? there's my one. There's my one poignant for the show.
I'll tell you what. Not only did they not take any Dread Knights, they didn't take any Grandmasters in Dread Knights. They also didn't take any Kaldor Dragos. So
zero.
So
they are playing.
So to mirror that, what the fuck is going on over there?
They're paying foot GKs. And I'm not going to tell you it's wrong, but I am going to tell you in a month from now, we will know if it was right.
So we'll know very quickly.
We will.
There is one... sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
I was going to say, there's one thing I think you and Matt Morsoy were talking about it last week, the purgation squads. And that's something I want to touch on briefly. So I think there's one reason they're taking purgation squads, and that is indirect flamers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you do that in the army that's mobile as all get out. And I think that's something. I think that's spicy. I think if that's kind of shown up in singles, I think that's something that we're going to see more of, because being able to drop down outside of 3 against stuff like T-Sun and go, oh, that's a nice single character you got there. Shame if someone were to drop in and shoot them from behind the wall, dodge the Arcane Vortex Overwatch, and still kill your Infernal Master.
Yep. 100%. When I unpacked it a little bit further, when I was very quizzical about their build, and I don't hate it. It's much grindier for Grey Knights. Like, it's much more. I'm aiming for 12-8 wins, but I don't hate it. It's still packing a whole army of 2+ skew. It doesn't get blown out very hard by anything, and into things like T-Suns, into things like Eldar, it does extremely well, because those little flamer profiles, and then all essentially, if a Stormbolter is good in the matchup, their army is very good. and
it ties better back into like the same thing where you drop down your purgation squad and your opponent has to go, well, if I don't do anything to this, they're just going to keep running around doing this nonsense. But then if I move, I have to stay outside of 12 or outside of 9, so they don't miss, and then just bounce off anyway. Do I really want to go backwards?
Yeah.
Or Overwatch?
Yeah.
And if you're like T-Suns, do you really use do you Magnus indirect a purgation squad to death? I will happily take that trade. Thanks 100%. For burning all of that effort to kill my 5 idiots with a quarter of your army.
So 93% of teams, pretty much everybody except England, who took Grey Knights, took 3 Dread Knights. They took the maximum amount of Nemesis Dread Knights, and 50% took Grandmaster Dread Knights, around about usually taking 2. Librarians, 71% of the time are taken. Terminator's been taken 86% of the time, and Strike Squad's 89% of the time. So Strikes are showing up a lot at the moment. I really like Strikes. Sticky on a unit that jumps around, that's a 2+ save, and actually just still kind of slaps in combat for your battle line unit, I think is pretty good in Pariah Nexus. Interceptor's taken a little bit more, actually a little bit less than I would have thought, to be honest. 36% of team took some Interceptors, and then it just goes down from there.
Yeah, the vast majority of them took 5.
Yeah.
That lines up in singles too. 44, there's 9 Grey Knight lists in singles that I've got next in 1, and 33% of them have taken a 5 of Interceptors.
All right. Frankie boy, give us a lowdown on the Hypercrypt lists.
So, Hypercrypt WTC lists, 94% are taking Immortals and Locust Destroyers, 78% are taking 1 or more Monolith, 72% rocking Deathmarks and Flayed Ones, 61% rocking a Hexmark Destroyer, and then we go kind of down the line. Locust Heavy Destroyers, Chronomancers have around the 40% mark. Doomsday Arcs showing up in a third of lists. 28% taking Scorpec Lords, 33% taking Scorpec Destroyers, which I think is too few of both of those. I think in Hypercrypt there's a really, really cute combo you can do with Scorpex and Monoliths that I think. So Scorpex innately reroll once to hit. If you charge, you reroll all hits. And I think, as we all know, that's never been a bad ability on a melee unit. Just reroll all your hits. And then the Lord, innate lethals all the time.
Mm.
Really good. So in Hypercrypt, you could give them Deep Strike just for 15 points or something off that enhancement. Just give them Deep Strike, Ingress, and then that's a not insignificant Ingress play. You could also teleport them into a Monolith 6, and then use the strat to bypass the fact that you normally can't charge, and then you can charge with that. So you can shoot up a Monolith right outside someone's door, teleport in your Scorpex, pay the CP, and then punch through someone's lines. And now they got 6 angry robot idiots that they were not expecting to come out of reserve or something like that.
I agree. I really like that combo. Transcendent Catan only taking 24% of the time, and then looking down for our named Catans, 22% for the Nightbringer and the Void Dragon. The best players in the world have told you, Necron players, stop it, cease. Drop the Catan.
Take the
Drop
monolith.
The Catan.
Just take it. Just take the monolith.
I don't know what Catan do for you in Hypercrypt, to be honest.
Not enough is my absolute definitive, WTC stat-based opinion. I would like to say that the Silent King numbers are a bit lower than I expected. 44% of people playing the Hypercrypt are taking the Silent King. I assumed the Silent King was one of the linchpin units of Hypercrypt, but I'm apparently wrong. And this is beautiful. It's beautiful to learn these things. But what are people doing in their Hypercrypt when they're not taking Monoliths, the Silent King, and Doomsday Arcs? Because in my opinion, they're pretty linchpin, hold it all together. It seems like they've gone way heavier into the Locust Destroyers, the Locust Heavy Destroyers. And that's what they've decided are just better on these tables. Yeah, so we've got 94% taking Locust Destroyers and 44% taking Locust Heavy Destroyers.
Yeah, and again, most of the Locust Destroyers are very small units.
They're singles for jumping around.
Pop up and then pop up, and then you have heavy Locust Destroyers.
That's the nerf that I want for Necrons, by the way. Make the Locust Destroyer a unit of 2 or 3. That's the nerf that they deserve. If they did that, though, Death Marks and Flayed ones would get taken 100% of the time, which is totally fine. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this part 1. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. We're going to be doing a lot more than this and going even deeper on things over on part 2. Our patrons have requested we do full faction breakdowns for Nids, Eldari, Admech, Tau, Imperial Knights, and T-Suns, in addition to a bunch of stat-based questions. So if you want to get some of that goodness, come over and join us over at Art of War Down Under over on Patreon. Nathan, thank you very much, mate, for coming on, the Statty Daddy himself.
Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure, mate. And Dirty Frank with his loud keyboard. Thank you so much for coming on and showing your class, man. Hopefully people really recognize what you're doing, because you're doing a really invaluable thing and pushing stats in a brand new and exciting direction.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I will not thank you for that nickname.
That's one of the one true traditions of my show, where it's Australian culture. I got to give you a bad nickname. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Hope you guys will join us over on part 2. I do expect to be away for possibly the next 2 weeks, but I'm hoping to get a episode in the pipe for you, so you only miss out on 1 week of your Down Under content. Because, of course, I'm going to be streaming for 7 days straight with Joe, and will not have time to stream. If you're missing out on that content, come over and grab some other content. Absorb some WTC goodness. Let it bathe in, just a pool full of it. I actually, you know what I want? What's the on the Dark Knight, where he's got all the mobile phones synced up and he has that big screen of everyone's homes? I want pictures of that for the WTC content, and then your partner walks in and be like, "This is too much power for one man," and it's just like every WTC stream concurrently running. Yeah, that's what I want for you all guys. All right, we're out of here. Love you all. See you later.
Got in too deep, now I can't sleep at all. breaking my back for propping you up for so long. Yeah, for so long. And if you give me some slack, yeah, if you give me some slack, I'll show you the best of it all. I'll see you on the other side. 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 Throwing back a bottle of nothing. We are nothing.